Whether or not you've been paying attention, that's another issue. Is there anything else you want me to read another one?
Please continue.
Hmm?
Please continue.
Let's see, excuse me. Slaves may be prosecuted criminally without their masters being made parties to the trial. These are those what you call trials in absentia type things they've been doing to our people. Except they should be indicted as accomplices, and said slaves shall be tried at first by the judges of ordinary jurisdiction, and if there be any, and on appeal by the superior council, with the same rules, formalities, and proceedings observed for free persons, save the exceptions mentioned hereafter. And keep in mind, this is where our people keep recognizing when they keep on seeing this so-called double standard of law that they keep arguing about. Well, there it is. There it is. It's not an attitude. It's written. You know, and this is back to, you know, like last year and a few years ago, every once in a while we'll do a reminder class or rehash jurisdictions and understanding jurisdictions and the important for our people to understand jurisdictions, what creates them, what their categories are, the challenging of jurisdiction, which would be called quo warrantos or averment of jurisdiction, why they exist. Mandamuses, also being in proper person so that you can even have the capacity to even make an argument. Under the Black Codes, you don't even have the capacity to even make an argument because it's a dead status, which Barack Obama told us, our people, it was. So while people even complain about him, at least he told them that, didn't he? He told people that blacks are dead status. They can't say that he didn't say that because he did.
Someone asked, I can't pronounce the name, appellation, do Moors have a relocation plan?
Why?
It's well, where we got to go.
It's your house. Why? How about do the hybrids have a relocation plan? Do you think they're going to steal the land and steal the people and they're going to retain it? They may think so. I don't think so.
Taj, who comes? Taj talk about how a passport means, I guess, you're a U.S. citizen. Some more teach that they put the free national name on the passport. But it is all in capital letters. Can you explain that?
Yes. Anything that's created by the corporate state is, of course, is dead and is de facto. That's the fact. Now, when are our people going to stop supporting all these institutions that put you on your knees to get your head chopped off? And when are you going to put your energy together to reestablish your own consular venues that are the law communications all over the world? It's not that they ain't in place. Have you been exercising it? Have you been helping those who've been trying to get you to do that, exercise your obligations to your affairs with the rest of the families of nations, which is a consular venue of diversity, of nationality, all over the planet, which is a constitutional and treaty issue, not some U.S. passport, which is an imposition under maritime law, claiming the vessels of the living man and women, of the sentient man and women, to be a ship under maritime law. That's what a passport is for, ships, not for humans. So let's work on working that out, shouldn't we? Shouldn't we be? So when we're talking about rights and lands, then land jurisdiction distinguished from maritime jurisdiction. Isn't a passport a maritime jurisdiction?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, don't we have work to do, you all? And keep in mind, the U.S. is not a country. It's a private corporation constructed specifically for human trafficking. Specifically for human trafficking. Even their courts are what? Traffic courts. Human trafficking.
I told you what they did try to do to me when they said I was speeding, and I went and protested and
convert a right into a maritime trafficking.
They offered me a PBJ, which means a plea before judgment.
Mm-hmm.
So you just pay, mm-hmm. and I refused.
Mm-hmm. And you could beat it all together too. Well, the jurisdiction of the fraud. This is for people, as a matter of fact, Dr. Naila, for all the scholars out there, because you already know that the Curia members will always send trolls out, right? Show in the Constitution for the United States or any treaty where traffic court was established under the jurisdictional powers of and for the United States. Show it. Show it. You can't and you won't, because it doesn't exist. It's a fraud. And everything concerning it is a fraud. But they've gotten away with it because you've accepted their fake jurisdictions and you never challenged it. Anything else, Dr. Naila? We're going to read a few more of these black codes.
Yeah, I think they're wanting to hear the different codes. Because
let's read 36. The slave who was sentenced to suffer death on the denunciation of their master shall, when the master is not an accomplice to the crime, be appraised before his execution by 2 of the principal inhabitants of the locality, who shall be especially appointed by the judge, and the amount of said appraisement shall be paid to the master to raise the sum, and shall be collected by the persons invested with that authority. So you can see when agent representatives of the gangs of New York are sent out on behalf of the corporate state, the corporate state would be politically referred to as the master. So when you see in the Christian Black Codes master, just change it to the corporate state, whether you're dealing with the mayor or the governor, etc., or any agents or agencies sent out to feed upon the people by them. Those would be called contractors. And they're delegated what you would call, or given what you would call, pledged authority to the corporate exercise. This is why for our people who don't really comprehend some of these principles, why when you do any research in Supreme Court cases concerning so-called, and this is a designed statement, so-called police brutality, and you'll see all Supreme Court cases will demonstrate or rule that the obligations of the police is not to the people, but to the corporation. That's a fact. Just a reminder so you comprehend what's going on out in these streets on your land with these demons who you've been thinking was your government, who are not your government, never were, Article 37, we forbid all the officers of the Superior Council and all our other officers of the justice in the colony to take any fees, or receive any perquisites in criminal suits against slaves under the penalty, and in so doing of being dealt with as guilty of extortion. Article 38. We also forbid all our subjects in this colony, whatever their condition or rank may be, to apply on their own private authority the rack of their slaves under the pretense whatever, under any pretense whatever, and to mutilate said slaves in any one of their limbs or in any part of their bodies, under the penalty of confiscation of said slave. A master so offending shall be liable to a criminal prosecution. We only permit masters, when they shall think that the case requires it, to put their slaves in irons and to have them whipped and rode or roped. Now, with Article 38, now you understand where people be sitting around talking about, they're packing 80% of the people in prisons are blacks and Puerto Ricans and everything, and this is racist and stuff. No, it's the Christian black codes. And those are tags put on Moors under subjects. They are not pedigree identities. Blacks and Puerto Ricans or Latinos are not pedigree identities or historical pedigrees of peoples. They are tags put upon defeated Moors by the hybrid Europeans, regulated by members of the Circle Church and Chancery, with all jurisdictional powers run from Fleet Street, England, delivered to Washington, D.C., then distributed to the different municipalities and the corporate states or states of jurisdictions, distinguished from state republic jurisdictions, which were overthrown. Thank you very much. They're all run by the Christian black codes. That's where you get those abuses from. Article 43. Husbands and wives shall not be seized and sold separately when belonging to the same master, and their children whom under 14 years of age shall not be separated from their parents, and such seizures and sales shall be null and void. The present article shall apply to voluntary sales, and in such cases, sales should take place in violation of the law. The seller shall be deprived of the slave he was illegally retained, and said slave shall be adjudged to the purchase without any additional. Article 44. Slaves 14 years old and from this age up to 60 who are settled on lands and plantations and are at present working on them shall not be liable to seizure for debt, except for what may be due out of the purchase money agreed to be paid for them, unless said grounds or plantations shall be distressed and seized, and judicial sale of a real estate without including the slave of the aforesaid age who are part of said estate shall be deemed null and void.
So, that sounds like what came to mind when you're reading that, when we're talking about the issue now about the border and unaccompanied minors.
Yes. All of that operation is still the black codes. And people keep looking at, well, where's due process? They're not constitutional operators. They're organized criminals. They're not your government. They're Roman curate members. That's a fact. Our people, it's hard for our people to accept that among the hybrids operating in North America, that these people are Roman curia members and that they're carrying out the rules of Rome. They're not carrying out justice. They don't love Jesus. They just use him as a front. They don't love Muhammad and they don't love the Prophet. They don't love Allah. They're using them as a front. They use them as a front to get the people's trust. Then you start dealing with them and they screw you every time. And you ain't caught on yet, It's not racism. It's the Christian black codes.
For Dr. G, you took the plea. No, I did not take the plea, Sade. I was a city official, and they just dismissed it. I didn't plea anything. You know, with that ticket, Grand Sheik. Someone said I took the plea. I didn't take the plea. I didn't take the plea. I you know, I
and
said
even then it's interesting because
when I showed up, I sat there for 15 minutes. When after they released me on my OR and came back for court, and I sat there for 15 minutes. They said dismissed. It was dismissed. I never even went in the courtroom, so-called courtroom. I sat out there, but I was a city official. But I didn't plead.
Yeah, of course you're not, because that admits the jurisdiction. Keep that in mind.
Right.
They had no jurisdiction in the first place.
Yeah.
Article 50. Masters, when 25 years old, shall have the power to manumit their slaves. And I suggested y'all who are listening, look up the word manumit. So when you have these so-called black scholars talking about freed slaves and manumitters, and we was manumitted in 1865 and Juneteenth and all this stuff, that's BS. You've been played and you're being played. Manumission does not mean liberation. You better believe that. Like for real, for real, for real. Masters, when 25 years old, shall have the power to manumit their slaves either by testamentary dispositions or by acts inter vivos. And write that down, inter vivos. That's INTER VIVACE. Pay attention to all of these law terms because they have much to do with the social engineering that's been going on relative to our people. Say it again.
How do you spell it again?
Inter vivos. Yeah. INTER, one word, vivos. VIVACE. And the other word, manumit. 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 None of these words mean what our people have been thinking they mean. So our people think they've been liberated and slavery and 1865. And we was able to get our own peanut butter sandwiches at cents. You stop lying to yourself. BS. All this stuff was institutionalized.
Inter VIVOS.
Inter vivos.
INTER VIVOS.
Right here is well, we're talking about the time that this was written. This is in the 1700s.
Okay.
The structure of the spelling may change, but this is the spelling.
Giving between living people.
1700s, this is the spelling.
A legal term referring to a transfer or gift made during one's lifetime.
Yes. So transfer of responsibility, jurisdiction, gift, people, trade. Gotta put it in perspective. Anyway. Pardon me. Yeah, so, and thereas slaves with a view to acquire the necessary means to purchase their freedom may be tempted to commit theft or deeds of plunder, no matter to set free the slaves without the obtaining from the superior council a decree of permission to that effect, which permission shall be granted without cost when the motive for the setting free of said slaves, as specified in the petition of the master, shall appear legitimate to the tribunal. And all future acts for the emancipation of the slaves freed shall not be entitled to their freedom. They shall be taken away by their former masters and confiscated for the benefit of the India Company. So the India Company and the Virginia Company is really what our people have been falsely calling the United States.
And when we were listening to Mel K talking about the Pesos family
Yeah.
and all that they own, which is now appears to be multiple corporations, but it's really owned by this one trust with the 12 or 13
Now, and then you're talking about
bloodline families.
Now, keep in mind when you're looking at that, you're looking at the hybrid Europeans that took over Iberia.
Iberia
is now known as Europe.
Okay.
So now you're talking about Germany, France, etc. And this is again why when they're teaching history, they will teach Europe as only the hybrids. They won't teach Europe as the Picts, the Moors, and the Dubs, which are the true Europeans, which are Africans. That's why they won't say Iberia.
It's funny when you see a lot of so-called Africans in Europe, they act as if they came there instead of the.
It's the disassociation practices that you talked about.
Mm-hmm.
But again, just like we said before, just like when we were talking, I think the last time we showed some of the coats of arms of Europe with Joel A. Rogers, one of the world's most awarded scholars.
Mm.
Do you see any pale faces?
No.
Not a one. See, so people keep forgetting in the early 1800s is this is when we lost Europe or Iberia. The same way, like when you see a lot of people talking jurisdictions or like they're talking about the economic trade competition between Russia and the United States and China now, as an example, in Brazil, or what they call the BRICS nations, competing with the U.S. They keep looking at it from the perspective that they're competing with a country.
Mm.
They're not looking at that they're competing with a corporate entity, operators of Rome, who have been going to and fro the earth, devouring nations, and then pretending to be a nation themselves. So you got to look at that paradox that creates a lot of convoluted thought, doesn't it? But not